So here we are, 4 or 5 weeks after harvest. These plants we actually let go because they were only first year plants, but the rest of the plants we had chopped. So now, what do we do before winter? Well, Max Raphael here from Hops World. Tip number 51 this week, post-harvest hops growers tips. Let's do it. Well, before we go any further, I just want to mention that there are places in the world that have 2 harvests per year. This video is going to be here in our hop yard in Pennsylvania in the United States, where we get 1 harvest per year and it gets really cold. But in places where there's 2 harvests per year, there are some slight differences in the first and second harvest. And at the very end of this video, I'm going to show you every single of the 14 steps and which ones we change a little bit. So stay tuned till the very end, especially if you're in an area like Brazil, Florida, Japan, Korea. A lot of them places, believe it or not, are getting 2 harvests per year. But without further ado, let's go out to the hop yard. Well, folks, the first thing that we do post-harvest is we turn off our irrigation system. Yes, folks, your plants don't need any more water from now until springtime unless there's a serious drought. They will be fine with just the rainwater or in the spring and the snow melt. The second thing we do that's super important this time of year is we send some soil for a soil test. Hopefully you did a test in the spring that you can compare to, but even if you didn't, it's probably even more important to get a soil test now in the fall, so you can amend your soil now and the plants will love you for it in the spring. So as you can see here, folks, I mentioned earlier, these plants here are first year plants. So typically we don't cut first year plants at all. We might pick cones from the plant. We typically just send cones out to test, maybe make a test brew, but typically they don't have too many cones. It's worth harvesting the whole plant. And it actually helps to let the nutrients from the plant dry out. As the plant dries out, translocate down into the roots and the rhizomes of the plant. So when the plant is harvested, as shown here, we cut this plant. We left one little branch all the way where the cones start. We typically cut the plants from 3 to 5 feet, 3 to 5 feet. And the plants that actually stayed, when we leave them after harvest, it helps the nutrients to go back into the ground to overwinter, as opposed to chopping a plant straight down to the ground right after harvest. So it's real important to wait until the first or second frost after harvest, anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks. This year it was really late. We had a warm November. And then what we do, once the plants totally dry out like this, we chop the plants only an inch or 2 from the ground with nice clean scissors or shears. Make sure you use a lot of alcohol or some kind of cleaner in between cutting plants so you don't spread any fungus right now. So in the next row over, I'll show you, we actually cut the plants already, and we'll take a look over there. So this row, the plants have all been cut. As you can see, these are all first year plants. These are just our own varieties, a cross of Comet with our male Neo-Mexican Rocky. And you can see how they've been cut. Only about 2 inches off the ground. Only like 3 little branches coming up. Down here too, you can see sticking up. Just a couple little branches. A bigger plant here. One of our crosses had a lot more branches. So that's the next step to getting ready for winter, is to clean off all the old dead plant material, whether it's a whole plant like these in our first row, or if it's just the leftovers after harvest, like this plant here. So we simply go and we cut all the bottoms of the plants really low, and then luckily we can lower our top wire of our trellis and cut all the top, and then we do a nice little cleanup. Ta-da! Well, number 4 on the list is to service or remove your irrigation system. Yeah, you say remove? Yes, folks, many farms in the Midwest and the far Northwest, Pacific Northwest of the United States, actually remove all of the irrigation hoses in the fall and lay them back out in the spring. Believe it or not, they want to prevent freezing and rodent damage. They have huge rollers that attach to the side of a tractor, and they drive down and actually remove miles and miles of hose. But in our case, our hose is suspended and our hose stays all year. So what we do is we empty the valve at the end of the hose and we blow air through the lines to clear out all the water. But before we do that, we rinse the hoses and wash them out. There's a product you can use that actually helps to rinse any sediment out of your hose. It's good to do now. So it's really important to check any manifolds or valves or tees or fittings or low areas where water might sit. I actually blew a valve just like this out last year. It exploded because there was water sitting in the valve. And another important thing to consider is your water pump, and if you have a water tank. I've seen people actually remove their pump over the winter to prevent any water from being inside and freezing. And if you have a chance of it freezing, you either need to drain your water tank or use some kind of an antifreeze. They do make products that you can use, or some kind of a movement maker to keep your water from freezing and possibly exploding your tank. Realize that for pipes to not freeze in our area, they need to be minimally 42 inches below the surface of the soil. So it's really important either to blow out all of your pipes or make sure they're deep enough in the soil that they're not going to freeze. Okay folks, so we cleared off all of our plants. We cut them down only an inch or two tall, and now we need to clear all of the leaves, foliage, and plant material. It's real important to clean off all your soil around your plants to help prevent the funguses and diseases for overwintering in this leaf matter. It also helps for any bugs that might stay in the leaf matter too. So we're going to do a good cleaning and let's get to it. So we use a plastic rake and go around and clean up all of the remaining leaf litter and trash and make everything look pretty. So okay, we cleaned off all of the old leaves and foliage, but we still have various weeds and live plants. Now, big farms at this point use herbicides to kill the weeds. We don't, because it's a small farm and we are organic. So the organic farmers obviously can't use herbicides, or at least anything that's not organic. And most of the farms in Europe actually clean mechanically with the tractor, cleaning all the dead, the live plants and all the dead. But we're going to go manually and pick out, because there's not that many of the plants now. It's a good time, this time of year, to clean off all the plants so that in the spring they don't grow even stronger. Also, this is a time to think about if you want pesticides and fungicides. First, fungicides. A lot of farms do use a drench systemic type fungicide this time of year to help against downy and powdery mildew and any funguses that are going to overwinter in the crown of your plants. So now's the time to investigate and think about if you're going to use that. As far as pesticides, I really don't like using pesticides in the fall, although if you had like a big outbreak of some kind of bug, you might want to check their life cycle, because most bugs either die in the winter when it's really cold or they migrate. So putting a pesticide down now isn't going to help, and it might actually kill all of your beneficial insects too. But there are times when farms have used pesticides at this time of year to kill any bugs that may be overwintering in the soil. And again, they typically use a drenched systemic type pesticide. Well, we finished this whole row. We just have these last two plants here, and it's pretty basic. We just take the top new plant growth that are weeds, and we clean the beds. So with a rake or hoe, we just scrape the top surface to get the weeds from around the hops plant. Now logically, on a big farm, they're going to use a tractor with an attachment on the side of the tractor, and they're going to clear all these both dead and live plant material, weeds, with a tractor. But we have a small hops farm, so we do it manually. So the next thing we do is we actually uncover and inspect a plant or two before we go forward. It's important to do to make sure your plants are healthy underground before you continue forward, where you might have to replace some plants. We uncover our plants, as you can see in this video, as opposed to digging them out, but you're welcome to dig out a plant or two to really inspect them. This video is actually from the springtime, but you can see that the plant looks healthy. The roots are nice and light colored, as opposed to any black or spongy roots underground that look rotted, or any bug infestations or anything out of the ordinary. It's important to do before you go forward. Inspect at least one or two plants depending on how big your hop yard is, and assuming all is well, you continue forward. Okay, so the next step is to read our soil test. You thought I forgot about that, huh? Well, we have our soil test that we took in April in the spring, before the plants started growing, and the soil test we took now, which is about a month or 6 weeks after harvest. And there's only 3 things that I really look at this time of year on our soil test. The first thing is the difference in pH from the spring to the fall. Wow, what a difference. The pH really dropped from 7.0 down to 5.9. And what's really nice with this laboratory, and the second thing that I look at, is they give you the actual adjustments that you need to make in order to adjust your soil. And here they're telling us to add lime, and lots of it, and they give you the quantity of pounds per acre of lime that we need to add. But we don't use lime, we actually use wood ash, an organic material that does the same thing. So the last thing that I always look at on our soil test is the amount of organic material. And as you can see here, our organic material is high. But I still always add some organic material in the fall, because I really want to try to mound up the hops crowns a little bit to cover any exposed crowns and give a little cultivation to the soil. So I think now's a good time to add a little nitrogen, a little ferts, a little organic material, always in the fall. So let's do that now. So what we have here is our ash pile from all of our plants that we harvested this past year. And this is really going to help us to help the plants both overwinter and also help the pH, to raise the pH. As opposed to adding lime, we add wood ash. You can't get ash from like your barbecue because there's fats in it. But if you make a fire or a brick oven pizza, would have the right kind of ash. But we always have bonfires and make s'mores, so it's the perfect kind of ash. And what we do is we burn all of our hop spines. Okay, a lot of big farms recycle the hop spines and turn it into organic material and fertilizers because it still has a lot of nitrogen in the bind. But the problem is, unless you know how to do that correctly, to compost correctly, you are taking a big chance of spreading any kind of disease that's in your hops. So it's real important, if you are going to use your hops binds for compost, that you will know how to compost correctly. You have to get the temperature up to 130 degrees. You have to get the CO2 correct in the pile. So we don't take any chances. We burn them and we add all kinds of organic fertilizers and nutrients to make our compost. After looking at our soil test, we realize we need more lime, or in this case, we use this wood ash. We need more than anything. So we're going to use about 50% wood ash, and we're going to add all these other products, just organic material that I always had this time of year, and mix it into the soil. So in the spring, I probably won't even have to add anything. We have some peat moss, some potting mix that I had mixed up with some fertilizers, and I believe there's some perlite. We have chicken manure, a little vermiculite thrown in there, mushroom compost that I love, and a couple other composts that I had mixed during the year that we're going to use up today and add to our pile of wood ash. And then we're going to spread this over our hops yard, and we're going to show you how we do that. So let's do it. Okay, so now we just mix all of our organic material and nutrients in with the wood ash and the plant ashes. We use a 50% mix of plant ashes along with the rest of the organic material. We give it a good mix. It's really important right now, folks, not to make a real wet or compact mix of organic material. Keep it dry and fluffy this time of year. Then we spread it alongside our hops in rows. You never ever put organic material, nutrients, or water or anything on top of the crown of your plant. That's super important, folks, okay? So this is our Tahoma plant here, looking real healthy. It already budded up here for the fall, but most of them little buds will definitely die. We really want the sprouts from down deeper. So it's here in our little bed of hops. And this is our organic material that we just put down, laying on the surface on the other side too. So what we want to do is mix this in slightly into the top layer of the soil so that it aerates the soil a little bit, and so that it's not pure fertilizer and organic material. And then we want to actually sweep this up. And I like to mound up and come right up alongside the crown here to protect that crown a little bit and just let the stem stick out. We'll do that on both sides because sometimes some of the crowns stick out a lot, and some of the varieties are vulnerable to the bitter cold. So let's do that. So we want to give it a mix. We don't want to go deep so we don't hurt the roots. Aerate this soil. Same on the other side. And then I like to mound it up right up next to the plant, just like that. So that plant will be nice and warm, nice and protected, and ready for the winter. Okay, so finish up that row, and here's the final results. As you can see, I pushed the soil right up against and around the crowns of the plant and just left the little stems sticking up. We definitely want to protect them little crowns from the cold that's about to come. And it was a good thing I finished up the hop yard, because look at the next morning at the frost on the grass. Got really cold last night, -6 degrees Celsius, which is about 21 degrees Fahrenheit. But the hop yard is protected from the winter and looking good. So on to the next step in post-harvest preparation for our hops. So the next thing we do is we check our trellis. Yes, folks, we check from the bottom to the top and everywhere in between. It's really important to check all the connections at the top of your trellis. Make sure all your wire clamps are still there and in order, so you have a good idea what you're going to need to do in the spring. And real important is check all your posts. If they're going to rot, they're going to rot below the surface of the ground. Here you can see a wrap that you can actually add after, and they even have products you can paint on your posts. It's better to do it before, but we even seen posts with about 6 foot of another post alongside the existing post to support them when I was in Yakima Valley this past fall. Now, believe it or not, one little broken wire clamp caused 2 acres of hops to fall while I was out there at Yakima Valley. Here's some pictures showing posts broken off, 2 acres of hops on the ground. Imagine what it took for them to pick these hops, picking up wire by wire, and to replace this whole trellis for the fault of one broken wire clamp. What a mess. So now's the time to think about adding an extra wire clamp or maybe an extra anchor or 2 at each corner, just in case. And make sure you make a good list of all the products that you're going to need and order them shortly so you have them ready for spring. So the last thing that we do is we review and we order. Yes, we review what we did good, what we did bad, any changes that we need. We have our list, and then we look at our list of products that we might need either for expansion or for revision, and we order now for the spring. Please don't wait till spring to order something and find out they're out of it, folks. So here is a complete list of the 13 steps that we take post-harvest. But what I want to talk about, for those of you that have 2 harvests per year, this list works perfect for the second harvest. But the first harvest, there are some differences, and we're going to talk about them. The first thing is we do not turn the water off. Right after harvest, the plants want to grow again right away, so we always leave the water on. The second thing is the soil test. I'm just going to put a little asterisk here next to soil test, because we do a soil test, but we ask for recommendations for the plants to grow immediately as opposed to recommendations for overwintering. And the next thing on the list is to cut and clear the dead plants. Now, the only difference from here on out with the whole procedure is we do not wait 4 to 6 weeks for the plants to actually go through that first frost and dry out after the first harvest. We cut the plants straight down to the ground right away and do all that clearing right away. You can check out tip number 48 here on our channel about how to harvest your hops, and it explains that. So moving forward, the next step is service and remove the irrigation. Now, we don't do that after the first harvest where we have 2 harvests. There just isn't enough time to go through all that because the water is going to keep pumping every day. But we always keep an eye on it, obviously. So continuing on the list, we basically just move everything forward and try to get done as quickly as possible the next few steps, because the plants are going to start wanting to sprout right away. So number 5, clean dead plant litter. Number 6, kill and clean live weeds. Number 7, apply pesticide, fungicide. Number 8, inspect a few plants, really important after every harvest. And then number 9, read the soil test. Again, we had asked them to do a test for them to give us the amendments or the additions for our plants to start growing as if it's a spring test, as opposed to post-harvest where the plants are going to overwinter. That's real important. Oh, you're going to add your organic matter or soil additions, probably nutrients at this point right away before your plants get going. And then as far as check the trellis, we really don't do that now twice a year. It's really not necessary. Maybe if there's one wire out of place or you need to tighten up one wire possibly, but we always keep an eye on that all year. But there's really no time to go around and checking and tightening every wire and every cable on your trellis right now. So the number 12 is review and order. We definitely review after every harvest. Even though we're going right into the next harvest, it's real important to review. And if we do need to order anything real quickly, we order for sure. That's the 12 main steps. The step number 13, we're going to talk about here at the end. Have a beer. Tip number 13, and probably the most important. This is a little promotional video made by a local brewery that this year made a fresh harvest IPA from hops picked at our hops farm. It was within a half hour from picking into the brew, and it's a neat little video that they made using our hops. One thing I learned when I went to Yakima Valley is the experience as a hops grower includes a lot of camaraderies and friendships made post-harvest with the brewers, with the friends, with the connections. It's real important, folks, to actually spend some time and enjoy a beer made with your own hops after harvest. Because remember, the next harvest is coming real soon. And these friendships, connections, business partners can become business partners for life, and more important, friends for life. So don't forget, folks, post-harvest, spend some time with your family, with your friends, relax a little, de-stress a little, because you only have this once or maybe twice a year, a chance to actually relax before the next harvest and the next crop begins. Okay, so that's how we take care of our plants post-harvest and before winter. Now realize that every farm does a little bit different, and some probably do it a lot different, especially big farms that use a lot more machinery. If you do different, please put a comment below. If you disagree, if there's something I left out, if you have any suggestions, please. I love learning. Well, thanks for being here with me today for today's tip, folks. Cheers to life.